Matzah. Today I'd like to wish you all a Chag Sameach and a very joyous Passover. Yes, I know we're all a bit confused. A couple weeks back someone wished me Shabbat Shalom on Thursday, and the other night, thinking it was already Friday, a friend actually lit the Shabbat candles. But Passover, you may ask? We all know that was last month. Indeed it was, exactly 1 month ago, and that is precisely why I have matzah. Let me explain. In the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, exactly 1 year after the Jewish people left Egypt, God instructed them to bring a paschal offering and eat it that very evening together with matzah and maror, just as they had done a year earlier prior to their exodus. The Torah tells us that that year there were a number of people who had become ritually impure from being in contact with a corpse, and as a result were unable to participate in the paschal offering. Could you imagine? God had just asked the entire nation to perform a mitzvah together, and not at fault of your own, you and a few of your friends are the only ones left out. So distraught by the inability to perform this special commandment just given by God, these individuals approached Moses and Aaron and said, "Why should we be deprived from presenting God's offering together with the rest of the children of Israel?" In response to their plea, God established today the 14th of Iyar as a second Passover for them and anyone unable to bring the paschal offering at its proper time. This year, for many of us, it is not only Passover that we were not able to observe and celebrate with family and friends as we usually do. Beyond financial and health concerns, there seem to be so many valuable engagements and activities, both physical and spiritual, that we are unable to do or do fully as a result of COVID-19. For one person, it might be the inability to go to the synagogue to pray and study Torah. For another, it might be the desire to pay the much-needed visit to an elderly or sick relative or friend. For another, it might be the inability to truly comfort a friend who has lost a loved one. And for some, it might be simple things, like not being able to leave their home to go to the grocery store or just meet up with friends. But the second Passover reminds us that there is no such thing as a lost opportunity. Sometimes we might have to be creative, but we can always make it up. Devorah's grandfather, Rabbi Elazar Kalman Tiefenbrun, of blessed memory, would often share the following story. In the early 80s, he spent the holiday of Shavuot with the Rebbe in Crown Heights. One Friday afternoon, he invited his son-in-law to come with him to his son's yeshiva dorm room and enjoy the lunch he had just bought. After lunch, he went off to a local store and soon realized that he had forgotten to recite the blessing after a meal called a bracha achrona. Meanwhile, he met a dear friend, and in preparation for Shabbat, he went off to the mikvah, the ritual bathhouse. And then, as he started to make his way back to the home of his host, he decided to go into the office of the Rebbe's secretariat at 770 Eastern Parkway to see if there was an answer to a letter he had written to the Rebbe. As he opened the front door of 770, he was surprised to see the Rebbe approaching the door, and so he politely held the door open, allowing the Rebbe to exit. The Rebbe stopped and asked him in Yiddish, "Is da was zu essen und zu trinken? Do you have what to eat and drink?" Devorah's grandfather was puzzled. What did the Rebbe mean? Perhaps the Rebbe was asking if his host was taking care of him, or maybe whether he was okay financially. So to play it safe, he quickly answered, "Baruch Hashem, thank God." To which the Rebbe responded, "Baruch Hashem. And what about a bracha achrona?" "Yes," he exclaimed in astonishment. The Rebbe then shrugged his shoulders and continued on his way. And of course, Devorah's grandfather quickly went off to recite the forgotten blessing. This, my friends, is the message of the second Passover. In today's daily message, in Hayom Yom, the Rebbe's first of many hundreds of published books, the Rebbe shares the following quote from his revered father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. The message of Pesach Sheni, the second Passover, he explains, is that es ist nicht da kein Verfallen. It is never too late. One can always correct and make amends, even one who was impure or was on a distant path. Even if he brought himself to such a state willingly, he can nevertheless correct it. There are times such as now in which we are unable to practice certain customs, perform certain mitzvot, or pursue important endeavors. 2 weeks ago, when Eli Beer, the founder of United Hatzalah, a worldwide volunteer ambulance corps, woke up after being sedated in a coma for over a month in Miami, he asked, when is Pesach? No one had the heart to tell him he had missed it. But when he realized it, he couldn't believe it and really wanted a second chance. And that is exactly the message of Pesach Sheni. It reminds us that when it comes to a mitzvah or a positive action, there's no such thing as a missed opportunity. We can always make it up. This morning, a picture was circling of Eli Bir sitting in his home in Israel last night, enjoying his Passover Seder. Indeed, it's never too late. And you know, we are taught that everything God teaches us to do, He does Himself. So while we haven't yet merited to experience the final redemption with the coming of Mashiach, today we ask God for redemption. And we remind God that it's never too late. Yes, we'd all be delighted to open the door and welcome Him in right now. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.